number. Oh, that's here.
On board a warship that will one day be protected by fleets of drones, the Prime Minister was in Glasgow to announce the future of the armed forces in what he called a blueprint for a battle-ready, armour-clad nation.
We are moving to warfighting readiness as the central purpose of our armed forces. When we are being directly threatened by states with advanced military forces, the most effective way to deter them is to be ready, to deliver peace through strength.
If technology is multiplying military capabilities, the war in Ukraine is demonstrating a real and present threat, which the government says it will meet with a hybrid Royal Navy, mixing ships, submarines and drones, much greater offensive cyber capabilities, and new homeland missile defences. There will also be lots of new kit, 6 new munitions factories in the UK, up to 12 nuclear-powered submarines and 7,000 long-range missiles. What is the threat that all this kit is needed to counter?
We see a Russia that has no intention whatsoever of stepping back. And we're also in an environment where, frankly, I think it's also sunk in with everyone that the United States is going to do less to support European security. And that includes the UK as well. We still have an important defence relationship with the United States, but it's going to be nothing like it's been, certainly for the last 80 years and including for the last decade.
The review's authors suggested defence spending would ultimately need to rise to 3%, something the government has so far only called an ambition.
Are you committed to spending what you need to deliver everything that's in this review, or is it just an ambition?
We are committed to spending what we need to deliver this review.
It's a sharp change of direction after decades of falling defence budgets, but the opposition think the 3% target must be hit sooner.
We need to see it by the end of this Parliament. Otherwise, many of the plans which they've put, even in this strategic defence review, just will not happen. We need to give certainty to the defence industry as well.
And those who have served agree the government needs to move more quickly.
Unless it's fully funded, then frankly it will not be the success that the government wants it to be. It's a bit like in 1937 saying to Hitler, hold on, don't attack us until 1946 because we're not ready.
The Prime Minister talked about a defence dividend for British industry today, and there may well be one, but only because a much larger proportion of taxpayers' money is now going to be spent on defending the United Kingdom. Carl Dinnan, ITV News, Glasgow.
So how will these plans help the UK to defend itself then? Here's our political correspondent Romilly Weeks with the details. Romilly, these warnings from the Prime Minister do seem increasingly urgent, don't they?
Yes, Mary, the overwhelming message is pretty ominous, and one line from the review really struck me. It's no longer unthinkable that the whole nation will go to war and not just the armed forces. So with that sobering thought in mind, the review places a significant focus on homeland security, with the MOD facing 90,000 cyber attacks from state-linked sources over the past 2 years. Now the military needs to innovate at wartime pace with a new Cyber M command system to coordinate the fight back. The UK's critical national infrastructure is to be better protected, with the Royal Navy securing undersea cables and infrastructure. And there will be £1 billion of new funding for homeland air and missile defence. But what there won't be is this, an Israeli-style Iron Dome protective shield for the UK, unless the government commits significantly more money. As for threats abroad, the most obvious threat to European security is from Russia attacking a NATO ally. Key elements of the UK increasing its war-fighting readiness will be beefing up our nuclear deterrent with a £15 billion investment in the Sovereign Warhead programme and more nuclear-powered submarines, 6 new factories providing an always-on supply of munitions and harnessing cutting-edge technology, including AI, robotics and drones that we've seen transforming warfare on the battlefields of Ukraine. But hollowed-out troop numbers may prove a challenge to all of this. You'd have to go all the way back to the time when Napoleon was the threat to find numbers so low, with just 136,000 full-time armed forces personnel. Compare that to Russia with 1.5 million or China at 2 million troops. So the review recommends increasing the number of reservists by 20%, releasing personnel in back office functions to frontline roles, and the government says it's aiming for a small increase in the numbers of full-time soldiers too. But all of this is dependent, as Carl says, on the government finding the money to increase defence spending to 3% over the next Parliament. And remember, so far the Prime Minister has only said that his ambition, Mary, which is some way off being set in stone.
OK, Romney Weeks, thank you. And on the subject of funding, our political correspondent Carl Dinnan is in Glasgow, where the Prime Minister launched the plans earlier today. So, Carl, big question, where was the money going to come from?
Well, it does depend a little bit, Mary, on how much money we're talking about. The Defence Review was supposed to set out what could be done with 2.5% of GDP, which the government has already found by cutting the aid budget. But as we said, the defence reviewers suggested today that they would need to get to that 3% target, which the government is only talking about doing sometime in the middle of the next decade. That's an extra £17 billion or so, which even in defence terms is a lot of money. It would buy you 17 of those frigates. So if the government is going to find that extra money, well, the Institute for Fiscal Studies said today, given that everything else they are trying to do with the public finances, it would probably require some pretty chunky tax rises.